I'm going to start this video with a quote from the book The Tamed Man, also known as The Manipulated Man by Esther Villar. By the age of 12 at the latest, which is when most women decide to begin their career as prostitutes, that is, to later have a man work for them by making their vagina available to him at set intervals as compensation. The woman ceases to develop her mind. Of course, she continues to educate herself and earn all sorts of diplomas, since men believe that a woman who has memorized something also actually knows something. A diploma, therefore, increases the woman's market value. But the reality is that from then on, the paths of the sexes diverge forever. All possibility of understanding between man and woman is from then on forever ruled out. That is why one of the most important mistakes men constantly make when judging women is to consider them as equals. I mean, as a human being who operates more or less on the same level of feelings and intelligence as he does. The idea that this well-known paragraph from the book conveys is that sex between a man and a woman is transactional. It only happens because the man is offering something in exchange to the woman. And then a lot of people think, no, but that's just what prostitutes do. Not necessarily. The paragraph itself showed that. For example, a prostitute agrees to have sex in exchange for money directly, right? A wife, she agrees to have sex with her husband in exchange for his protection and provision. Even in a dating relationship, the woman agrees to keep having sex with the guy. Maybe he doesn't support her financially, maybe there's no provision involved, but there is protection and commitment. From the moment a man is in a relationship, he can't be with other women. And even in casual sex, there's a transaction involved. So what happens in casual sex? 80% of women go after the top 20% of men. Again, the guy isn't providing for her, protecting her, signing a contract, or paying this woman money. But he's probably paying most of the money for dinner, for the date, or he's paying for the whole date. So there's already a transaction happening there. And even when the guy doesn't pay, like I said, 80% of women are still going after the top 20% of men. In short, there's a transaction because this man's market value is way higher than the woman's. He has a higher status. So just this difference in market value makes the woman feel special. That's also a transaction. And this is such an instinctive thing, something that's just part of human nature, that even in studies that have been done, women agreed and admitted that when they find out a man has money, he becomes more attractive to them. That's why we see cases of men who are 40, 50, 60 years old getting involved with women who are half their age or even younger. This happens with other mammals too. There have even been studies with monkeys where researchers tried to teach them the concept of money. They were given some coins that could be exchanged for food. And it didn't take long before the first prostitute monkey appeared. The male monkeys would give these coins to the female monkey would have sex with them, and then use the coin to get food. And even among other primates, it's been observed that males do certain favors for females in order to get sex. Basically, they give massages, grooming, which means they clean each other, pick lice from each other's fur, and so on. And even among other mammals like wolf packs, lion prides, and gorilla groups, even though the females in these mammal groups are able to hunt for their own food and all that, they still depend on the protection of the alpha. And that's funny, because you have females who can support themselves, who can get their own food. However, even so, she still submits to an alpha who is the one with the highest status in the tribe and the one who defends the territory. See if this isn't similar to the 80-20 rule, which happens in human relationships over the last century. So, let's think about this now. Starting from the second wave of feminism in the 1960s, women gained the right to study and work in anything again. I'm not saying they shouldn't have had that right. It's just that the government was used to try to ease any and all difficulties that might come up along the way. So we have the CLT that gives preferential treatment to women. Now they're asking for quotas in universities, in the private sector. Then we have maternity leave. And there's even that law that says men and women have to receive the same salary. But you can clearly see that men work in areas that require more physical effort, have more risk, and work longer hours. But what was all this? It was the outsourcing of the male role through the state. Basically, women, together with feminism, use the state to secure their own provision, to become financially independent from men. And as I said from the very beginning, sex is transactional. Both in humans and in other animals, females are willing to submit to a male and have sex with him in exchange for protection, provision, and security. So what do you see happening from the second wave of feminism, starting in the 1960s? We see a big increase in female promiscuity, infidelity, to the point that even today, in recent years, there has been a lot of pressure in the media to make cheating acceptable, to make open relationships acceptable. CNN published a shameful article about this. Deborah Secco came out some time ago trying to defend women's right to cheat, So think about this. In the last 50 years, since women started becoming financially independent from men, you've had an increase in promiscuity, an increase in divorces, an increase in the amount of cheating, this pressure for open relationships, and even something else and this culture of the 80-20 relationships emerged, with 80% of women going after the top 20 men, because they have their own money, they have their own careers, They managed to achieve this financial independence and the ability to provide and protect on their own. The only thing left is that emotion she feels when she's with a man whose status is way above hers, whose market value is much higher than hers, whether it's because the guy is biologically very attractive or because he has a lot of money. It's funny because just this year I talked to a psychologist, an older psychologist, around 50 or 60 years old, and she herself said that this current generation, ours, is the one that has the least sex. And then we even have articles and reports from recent years showing that there are men and women who are married and they go months without having sex, sometimes even years without having sex. And they don't get divorced, they stay together as if they were just roommates. Or the woman is willing and wants to be with other men, and at least has the decency to ask for a divorce before doing that. But many others, what do? They stay married, keep taking advantage of the husband's support and protection, but they cheat. And the other thing that's happened in recent years is this pressure to have open relationships. So here's the thing. This is the point I wanted to talk about a bit in this video, which is the following. All sex between men and women is transactional. It doesn't matter if it's through prostitution, it doesn't matter if it's through marriage, through dating, or even through one-night stands. Every relationship is transactional. Every sexual encounter is transactional, and women are willing to use their sexuality as a currency to get what they want. Whether that's commitment, protection, provision, or simply fun, just to get an emotional high. And what we see is that as women have become liberated and empowered, all that initial part about commitment, provision, and protection has been set aside. Because the state is providing that support for women. The state is also guaranteeing protection for women. So commitment itself doesn't hold as much value anymore, and that's why promiscuity is increased. So the only thing left in this transactional sexual relationship is basically women chasing after guys who are either extremely wealthy or extremely attractive, just to get emotional highs from time to time.